Hey everyone, welcome to JS Cafe, and in today's video we will be discussing how to reload JavaScript asynchronously. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So before starting this video, I would like to discuss the agenda of this whole series. So this in this series we will be covering all the basic system design principles of front end. So before actually diving into the problems of system design, it is very crucial for the developer or the the person who is giving the interview to know the basic principles of system design. Okay, so you should know that how can we optimize a network, how can we optimize image assets, how can we render things fast, what is virtualization and other stuffs. And after having concrete knowledge of those basic principles, then you'll be able to solve any given question in your interview. So in this series I will be covering all the basic basic to advanced system design principles that are gonna help you crack front end interviews. So this is pretty much agenda of this whole series. So now coming back to the topic of this video, that is asynchronously loading JavaScript. So let's begin. Right. So usually there are four ways in which we can load JavaScript into our HTML file. Right. So I have mentioned all the scenarios over here. So the very basic approach you might be following is this one, that adding the script tag after the closing of body tag. The reason being that you want the HTML parsing to happen first, and when this all parsing is done, JavaScript comes to this part and figures out that this is a script. So now I have to download this script, right? The browser makes a network call to download this script. Now once this is downloaded, it is executed, right? So I do have a maintained a kind of a timeline. Okay, so what was happening is that at this point JavaScript was over here, it started parsing. What I mean by parsing is that the construction of the DOM tree, okay, that is parsing. So this Java's the browser started parsing the HTML. It started from here, right? At this moment it started parsing, and all way it came to this body tag. Now after this point, okay, so HTML was started parsing from this point. Up till this point the parsing stopped. The browser encountered that a script tag was present. So at this point I need to download that JavaScript file. So indicated this with a purple line. So in this time the JavaScript is getting downloaded, and when this is done, when the download is finished, at this point I execute it. Okay, so this is the time frame of loading this HTML file when we add JavaScript after the body tag. Okay, this is fine. Now coming back to this part, what if I move my JavaScript into the head of the HTML? Okay, so let's see how will that behave. Now consider this: when our browser started the parsing, so it started parsing, parsing, and up to the point, at this point it encountered a script tag. So HTML parsing stopped there. Okay, now browser will download this JS. After downloading, it will execute that JS, and after executing this JS, like when this whole line is completed, download is done, execution is done, now it will move ahead and continue the parsing. Matlab it will start from here, then body, then it will finish body, then end of HTML at this part. So you noticed what the problem is, right? This approach, adding script tag in the head, is actually is blocking our HTML parsing, right? So the DOM tree, it is stopping the construction of the DOM tree, which is not at all very friendly, right? this is very bad experience for a user. Somehow there should be a way where we can optimize this loading of JavaScript, and it should also not pause our parsing, right? There's might be some way. Now at this point, comparing these two approaches, when the JavaScript is after the body tag, when the JavaScript is inside the head tag, so what do you think, which approach is the better, right? Anyways, you will tell that, hey, Vedant, this approach, that adding the JS, the script tag in the body tag is after the body tag actually is much more feasible, much more optimized than being adding it in the head tag, because it is actually blocking the parsing. Okay, that is one thing. Now if I tell you that somehow, I mean just somehow, I can modify this behavior, like I can stop this parsing some in some way, or I can optimize this. So in JavaScript we have two attributes, that is, the first is async and the another is defer. Okay, so let's talk about this, how they behave. Now coming back to, now let's modify this code. Okay, the part where we are adding JavaScript in the head tag. Okay, now have a look at this. What I did was, I just added one small attribute, async, in the script tag, and I kept my position of script tag inside head only. Okay, now notice how the time frame changes. Browser started parsing. Okay, it started parsing. At this point it encountered a script tag. Now notice the behavior. It simultaneously started downloading the JS. Okay, it started downloading the JS and it kept on parsing, right? The parsing wasn't stopped when this download was happening. Okay, by downloading a JS means fetching JavaScript. Okay, it is fetching the JavaScript code from the network. Okay, so while the download is happening, this, because of this async attribute, our parsing wasn't stopped as seen in the previous case. Okay, right? In the download part we saw that the parsing was actually stopped, but because of this async, our parsing wasn't stopped, parsing continued. And when the download was completed, we see that HTML again parsing got paused, browser executed the JS code, and then it resumed the parsing. Okay, we see sudden improvement, right? We see a small improvement actually in the previous approach where we were adding script in the head tag. We see that during the download phase we actually didn't paused our HTML parsing. Okay, that was one improvement, fine enough. But again, when our execution was happening, our HTML parsing was paused, which was again not a very good user experience, because we want to make sure that anyhow this parsing should not be paused anyhow. Okay, so here comes the defer attribute. Okay, see, so instead of async I just added a defer attribute over here. Now what this defer attribute is doing, it is telling that, hey, you start the parsing, the moment you come to a script tag you download it. Okay, and you continue the parsing. Okay, I'll fetch the JavaScript from the network and I'll keep it somewhere for you. The moment browser finishes parsing, matlab it has reached this part, it has generated a DOM tree actually, and now after the parsing is finished, now our code will be executed. Okay, now if I ask you, adding a script tag with a defer attribute in the head versus adding the script tag after the body, now what do you think is the optimal approach? Just give it a thought, like what's coming in your mind. Okay, so probably you might have guessed it, that using a script tag in the header with the defer attribute is probably more optimal, because we are prefetching JavaScript code during the parsing. As in the part where we are adding script after the body, we are making network call after the parsing is finished, right? We have to wait for the parsing to be finished and then perform the fetching. But instead, because of defer attribute, now we can prefetch the JavaScript code beforehand during the parsing phase, right? And when the parsing phase is completed, we can actually run the JavaScript code, right? So kind of prefetching helps us to improve the performance, because so now the download of JavaScript has been prioritized. Okay, the downloading was prioritized during the parsing phase, due to which we have all the JavaScript code available in our memory beforehand. Okay, much more before than we had in the body tag, right? So this was the part where we can optimize loading JavaScript. So how did we optimize the network performance? We optimize the network performance by prefetching the JavaScript during the parsing phase. Now, how come this question come up in your interview? So I remember this question being asked to me, and what interviewer asked, just one question: where do we place a script tag in the HTML and why? Okay, so you can start with so the motive of the interviewer is to take you to this approach. Okay, the interviewer wants you to explain this part, adding a script tag with deferred attribute and prefetching concept and all. But you have to start with that. Usually we place the script tag after the body tag at the very end of the HTML code, so that when the parsing is completed, we can download the JavaScript and execute it. But we can do a step, we can do much better than this by using the defer attribute of script tag. Now interviewer might grill you on this, like explain what is defer, what is async. So explain async to him, and then explain defer to him, right? Explain defer to him, and then compare async and defer. The only comparison point is that this execution part. Okay, async actually blocks the parsing during execution, but while defer doesn't blocks the parsing during the execution. Okay, so it is actually executed after the parsing is done. So you have to, after comparison, now you have to land to a conclusion why defer is actually better than async, and why should we use that. So, and how we optimize the network call by prefetching. So this question is what this is what expected from you as an answer during the interview. So I hope you got the concepts clear. How do we asynchronously load JavaScript and in HTML? And yeah, so this was all in this video. See you in the next one. I'll be coming up with more videos in this series. Till then, take care. Goodbye.